Good morning, everyone. I'm Megyn Kelly. It's Friday, April 25th, 2025, and this is your AM update.
We may have to conclude that they're so far apart that peace is impossible at this time.
Secretary of State Marco Rubio expressing an increasing impatience with Russia-Ukraine peace negotiations as the Trump administration reaches its deadline to strike a deal.
As I've said to him, if you want to challenge incumbents, you're more than free to do that, but just not as an officer of the DNC.
A civil war brews inside the DNC as Vice Chair David Hogg launches an outside campaign to unseat fellow Democrats. And Michelle Obama opens up on skipping the inauguration and the burdens of being her. All that and more coming up in just a moment on your AM Update. Now more than ever, it's important to shop with brands that share your values. And that's why I want to tell you about Nimi Skincare. Built on faith, family, and freedom, Nimi is proudly pro-America. With products made right here in the USA, they don't shy away from what they believe. While most skincare brands are busy pushing progressive messaging, Nimi never did, and women across the country noticed. And the products? Incredible. From gentle cleansers to age-defying creams, Nimi offers clean, fragrance-free formulas, love the fragrance-free, that are safe for sensitive skin like mine and powerful enough to deliver real results. Get 10% off your order at NimiSkincare.com by using the code MK at checkout. That's NIMI Skincare.com. If you're tired of giving your money to companies that do not respect your values, consider making the switch. Nimi Skincare, where modern skincare meets timeless values. The Trump administration expressing cautious optimism about reaching a Russia-Ukraine peace deal as Ukraine rejects the most recent proposal and Russia ramps up attacks on Ukrainian civilian infrastructure. On Thursday, President Trump addressing the ongoing talks while hosting the Norwegian Prime Minister at the White House.
I don't like that it takes long at all, but I think they both want to make peace. I do believe so. There's a lot of hatred there. There's a lot of very bad blood, a lot of distrust. But I think I hope we're going to get there for the sake of a lot of young people that are dying. And I have my own deadline, and we want it to be fast. And the Prime Minister is helping us. He wants it to be fast, too. And I think everybody at this time in NATO, they want to see this thing happen.
The White House previously stating the desire to finish a deal by the 100-day mark of the second Trump administration. President Trump's tone remaining optimistic as other White House officials express an increasing impatience. Secretary of State Marco Rubio in a Wednesday interview with the Free Press.
And I remain, hopeful that we can get something done because this is a terrible war and it needs to end because it has no military solution. There is no military solution to this war. We have to be frank. Russia's not just going to roll over Ukraine and take the whole country, and Ukraine's not going to push them all the way back to where they were before 2014. So what I would say we're involved in is understanding what is the Russian position. We have a better understanding of that now because we've actually spoken to them after 3 years of not speaking to them. What is the Ukrainian position? And figure out, are these guys even in the same neighborhood? Because if they're in completely different zip codes, then we may have to conclude that they're so far apart that peace is impossible at this time. We've done our best. We've put a lot of time and energy at the highest levels of our government. We'll continue to be willing to do so as long as there's a realistic path forward. If at some point we determine that we're just too far apart and not enough movement is happening, we may need to move on to other priorities because there are a lot of important things happening in the world. But ultimately, it's not up to us. It's up to Russia and it's up to Ukraine. They have to make the decision that they're willing to move closer to one another.
Vice President J.D. Vance conveying a similar sentiment earlier this week.
We've issued a very explicit proposal to both the Russians and the Ukrainians, and it's time for them to either say yes or for the United States to walk away from this process. I feel pretty optimistic about it. I think everybody has been negotiating in good faith, but it's now time, I think, to take if not the final step, one of the final steps, which is at a broad level, the party saying, we're going to stop the killing, we're going to freeze the territorial lines at some level close to where they are today, and we're going to actually put in place the kind of long-term diplomatic settlement that hopefully will lead to long-term peace.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky rejecting the U.S.-backed peace proposal presented last week in Paris, calling it too biased toward Russia. Mr. Zelensky saying the plan offers clear concessions to Russia and only vague promises to Ukraine. According to Axios, the plan includes formal U.S. recognition of Crimea as Russian territory, a key demand from Russian President Vladimir Putin, and a red line for President Zelensky. the peninsula annexed by Russia in 2014 in violation of the UN Charter, prohibiting member states from using force to change international borders. President Zelensky at a Tuesday presser saying, quote, Ukraine will not legally recognize the occupation of Crimea. There is nothing to talk about here. This is against our Constitution. President Trump responding on Truth Social, calling President Zelensky's stance, quote, very harmful, writing, quote, Crimea was lost years ago under Obama and is not even a point of discussion. It's inflammatory statements like Zelensky's that make it so difficult to settle this war. Multiple outlets, including Axios, The Washington Post, and Politico, reporting the deal also includes lifting Russian sanctions. Secretary Rubio responding to that reporting on X, writing, this is unequivocally false. Neither Steve Witkoff nor I have had any conversations about lifting sanctions against Russia as part of a deal with Ukraine. In response to President Zelensky's resistance, Russia ramping up attacks against Ukraine, on Thursday launching the deadliest barrage in 9 months. CNN reporting 70 missiles and 145 drones striking targets, mostly in Kyiv. Ukraine Emergency Services stating at least 12 killed and more than 90 injured across 13 locations, including civilian areas, with the possibility of those numbers increasing as rescue crews search through the rubble. President Trump posting to Truth Social on Thursday, quote, I am not happy with the Russian strikes on Kyiv. Not necessary and very bad timing. Vladimir, stop. 5,000 soldiers a week are dying. Let's get the peace deal done. A civil war brewing within the Democratic National Committee, sparked by newly elected Vice Chair David Hogg's plan to use his PAC, Leaders We Deserve, to target members of his own party. Last week, Mr. Hogg, who rose to national prominence as a gun control activist after the 2018 Parkland school shooting, launching a $20 million campaign to unseat Democrats in safe blue districts. His goal to replace them with candidates he claims will revitalize the party. Mr. Hogg laid out the effort on Friday to Scripps News.
The work that we're doing is twofold. One, we're looking to elect the most effective Democrats possible. Part of that looks like challenging Democrats that are failing to meet the moment right now. Our party has a 27% approval rating, and specifically challenging Democrats that are in safer Democratic seats that in no way, shape, or form risk us losing a majority in Congress by any means whatsoever. Our party is in a moment of crisis. Our country is in a moment of crisis right now, and we have to show people how we are actively working, not to push out older people by any means, but push out ineffective people and bring in the most effective leaders that are ready to meet this moment.
House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries on Sunday responding to the announcement.
Well, I look forward to standing behind every single Democratic incumbent, from the most progressive to the most centrist and all points in between. They're working hard in their communities, rising to the occasion. This past week, we had, of course, a Medicaid Matters Day of Action, a Safe Social Security Day of Action, and we have to continue to do all of the things. That's why we have elections every 2 years. Primaries are a fact of life, but here's the thing. I'm going to really focus on trying to defeat Republican incumbents so we can take back control of the House of Representatives and begin the process of ending this national nightmare that's being visited upon us by far-right extremism.
DNC Chairman Ken Martin calling out Mr. Hogg Thursday on News Nation.
As I've said to him, if you want to challenge incumbents, you're more than free to do that, but just not as an officer of the DNC, because our job is to be neutral arbiters. We can't be both the referee and also the player at the same time. You have to make a decision.
The chairman pushing a proposal that would require officers to take a neutrality pledge. Such a pledge would force Mr. Hogg to either step back from his PAC or vacate his post within the DNC. Mr. Hogg publicly vowing to fight to keep his position, though political reports Mr. Hogg told two Democrats he is willing to lose the vice chair position. The push for reform comes amid mounting distrust from the party's progressive wing, long critical of the DNC's treatment of outsider candidates. In 2016, leaked DNC emails revealing internal bias against Bernie Sanders, prompting the resignation of then-chair Debbie Wasserman Schultz. In 2020, similar suspicions arose when Sanders led early, only to see Joe Biden surge after a South Carolina win, boosted by what appeared to be a coordinated exit and endorsement by Pete Buttigieg, Amy Klobuchar, and Beto O'Rourke just days before Super Tuesday. Chairman Martin's neutrality proposal is expected to be voted on at the DNC's August meeting. Coming up, a first-of-its-kind terrorism case, the DOJ targeting a top member of Venezuelan gang Tren de Aragua. And Michelle Obama opens up about skipping the Trump inauguration in January. As President Trump is settling into his new administration, one of the top Democrats in Congress aiming to undermine the Trump agenda is Democrat Senator Dick Durbin of Illinois. And according to our sponsor, the Electronic Payments Coalition, Senator Durbin has a new plan, a government takeover of your credit card. Today, Americans have thousands of choices in credit cards, but they say Senator Durbin's plan will result in less competition and less security, which means more risk for your credit and your identity. You can learn more for yourself at guardyourcard.org, and you could consider telling your senators to stop Dick Durbin's government takeover of your credit card before it's too late. The DOJ this week bringing its first ever terrorism case against an alleged high-ranking member of the Tren de Aragua gang. President Trump designated the Venezuela-based group a foreign terrorist organization earlier this year. The designation allows the Justice Department to prosecute members under federal anti-terrorism laws, to seize assets, to increase penalties, and coordinate more closely with international law enforcement. Federal prosecutors charging 24-year-old Jose Enrique Martinez Flores with conspiring to provide and providing material support to a designated foreign terrorist organization, as well as conspiracy and distribution of cocaine in Colombia, intended for distribution in the U.S. Mr. Flores apprehended by Colombian officials in March at the request of the American government. He remains in custody there as prosecutors move forward with the charges filed in Texas. According to the indictment, Mr. Flores is a high-ranking leader within Tren de Aragua's operations in Bogota, Colombia, allegedly orchestrating the delivery of large quantities of cocaine, with the proceeds funding the gang's activity. If convicted on all charges, Mr. Flores faces a maximum penalty of life in prison and a $10 million fine. Attorney General Pam Bondi saying the charges, quote, represent an inflection point in how this Department of Justice will prosecute and ultimately dismantle this evil organization, which has destroyed American families and poisoned our communities. How long till the ACLU says we're not allowed to prosecute this guy? Former First Lady Michelle Obama opening up on her podcast, IMO, to actress Taraji P. Henson about burnout, boundaries, and how hard it is to be her. Mrs. Obama addressing her controversial absence from President Trump's inauguration as a form of self-care.
But then this is what makes it hard, because, my decision to skip the inauguration, what people don't realize, or my decision to make choices at the beginning of this year that suited me were met with such ridicule and criticism. Like, people couldn't believe that I was saying no for any other reason, that they had to assume that my marriage was falling apart.
Right. Mm-hmm.
It's like, while I'm here really trying to own my life and intentionally practice making the choice that was right for me, and it took everything in my power to not do the thing that was right, or that was perceived as right, but do the thing that was right for me.
Mm-hmm.
That was a hard thing for me to do.
Mm-hmm.
I had to basically trick myself out of it. And it started with not having anything to wear. I mean, I had affirmatively, because I'm always prepared for any funeral, anything. I walk around with the right dress. I travel with clothes just in case something pops off.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, if I'm not going to do this thing, I got to tell my team, I don't even want to have a dress ready.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's so easy to just say, let me do the right thing.
Ms. Henson lavishing praise on the former First Lady, saying, quote, when do you ever get to live for you? Ms. Obama then complaining that as a Black woman, she is not allowed to give voice to her pain.
We grew up with women who weren't voicing the pain
Mm-hmm.
and the burden. They made it look easy.
Mm-hmm.
And when you make stuff look easy, people assume that you must like this.
Yeah.
It's okay with you, right?
Right.
You know, we don't articulate as Black women our pain because it's almost like nobody ever gave us permission to do that.
And does anyone care?
Yeah, there's
Will
that.
they care?
If we knew, I think we would care. If we knew.
Mm-hmm.
If we knew.
Or, you know, yeah, and we have to ask ourselves, the men in our lives is, you know, why wait to be asked?
Mm-hmm.
You know, it seems like what we go through is pretty obvious. I mean, maybe we're not complaining, but we're actually living life out loud.
She went on to lament how hard she had it in the White House those 8 years.
So I'm at this stage in life where I have to define my life on my terms for the first time. So what are those terms? And going to therapy just to work all that out. Like, what happened that 8 years that we were in the White House? What did that do to me?
Yes.
Internally, my soul, we made it through. We got out alive. I hope we made the country proud. My girls, thank God, are whole. But what happened to me?
The White House is 55,000 square feet with 18 acres and a full staff of people who wait on the first family hand and foot. Mrs. Obama now enjoys 3 luxury mansions, including a 7-bedroom, $20 million estate in Martha's Vineyard, a multi-million-dollar Netflix and book deal, as well as worldwide adulation and 2 healthy, elite university-educated daughters. And that'll do it for your AM Update. I'm Megyn Kelly. Join me back here for the Megyn Kelly Show, live on SiriusXM Triumph Channel 111 at noon East, on youtube.com/Megyn Kelly, and on all podcast platforms.